Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players. I'm one of your three wonderful co-hosts, Ryan Stacy. Oh wait, there's only two of us tonight. We'll get more into that in a second, but we're talking about Survivor 47, Episode 11, Flipping the Win Switch. We're joined by Josh Wetzer tonight at my parents' house.
Woohoo.
We're at my parents' house tonight because it's Thanksgiving weekend and a lot of traveling going on, a lot of family stuff. Josh has driven over here.
Yes.
And Derek cannot be with us tonight because he is at his grandparents or hanging out with his grandparents or something. So Derek couldn't watch the episode tonight and he can't podcast. So no Derek tonight.
He doesn't even know what happened.
He doesn't know what happened. Fun episode.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't expecting us to get so piratey and so like Saw-esque. It was like a combination of Pirates of the Caribbean and Saw tonight.
And also some really good editing sequences, just with, giving a lot more perspectives on people and it kind of like that camp life aspect, but not like traditional camp life.
It was just people talking, which was fun. So really good episode. I liked it a lot. I think Sue doesn't like Kyle is what I learned tonight.
What?
But yeah, I think that's about it. Spoiler, Sue doesn't like Kyle.
Yeah, yes. Spoiler alert.
Should we jump into the episode? Or
let's
jump
do
into
that.
Spoilers. All right, 3, 2, 1. You know what? I'm actually pretty glad Derek's not here tonight because he could gloat like crazy. Because between the three of us, he has won the Survivor pool tonight.
Yep, which is the third or back-to-back years?
No, I think it's
straight?
his third in a row.
Yeah. So, we're going to cover it right now. Derek won the Survivor pool between the three of us, and we'll never talk about it now on the podcast until next season. Sorry, Derek.
Yeah, we'll get into more of the finite details of what happened on that tonight and explain why it's over. But yeah, Derek won. Congrats, Derek. You suck. I'm glad you're not here to gloat.
Also, one last other bit of housekeeping as well. No video tonight just because there are a couple of changes of plans. I do not have the video equipment with me. Also, Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So
bear with us.
Yeah, this will still go up on all the usual platforms and whatnot, but just no video.
Okay, you ready to jump into the episode proper?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we get back to camp, and the fallout was Sue was the only person not in on the Gabe boat last week. So Sue doesn't really trust Caroline anymore. She kind of feels like she's on her own. But the next day, Caroline and Sue are going to have a good talk. And Caroline kind of explains that she just didn't want to play Gabe's game anymore. Still wants to go to the end with Sue. So they patch things up. They're back together. So real quick Cold War between the two of them, but they're back together now.
Yeah, and it took probably one of the more emotional moments just from Caroline's perspective to connect with Sue and just be like, hey, this is just the way it had to be. And it seemed like that really resonated with Sue.
I think so.
I wasn't sure if it was going to hurt Caroline, actually, that she waited until the morning instead of doing it at nighttime, but it didn't seem like it mattered.
Sometimes, people just need a little bit of space. But yeah, we're back together, and they're going to actually join up because Andy, Rachel, and Teeny, the three of them make an alliance together, and Sue and Caroline walk up on them, and they're like, hey, actually, you two want to join? Do you want to come with? We got a 5-person alliance now.
You got a duo free agent there. You might as well use him before someone else does.
And it's two people who long shot to win the game. They're for people you want to bring with.
How dare you? I have Caroline much higher than you or Derek or the listeners. So, Caroline fan club over here.
Well,
I think that she has a decent chance.
I don't.
Now, Sue on the other hand.
Sue on the other hand. But the 5 of them, they agree to work together because the other 3 are just such ginormous threats. Sam, Kyle, and Genevieve. They're like, okay, well, the 5 of us work together. We'll probably take out Kyle next. Maybe Genevieve, Kyle wins immunity, but let's do this.
Yeah, and can I say, I feel like I do need to apologize for my rankings from last week. I had Kyle way too low. Now, this is all in hindsight just because of how much it was talked up this episode. I had Kyle second from the bottom, only beating Sue in my power rankings. And honestly, he probably should have been a lot higher, just the way that people were talking about him tonight.
Yeah, I probably should have had him like a spot or two higher, like probably above Andy and Caroline at the very least, and maybe even Teeny. So yeah, I think I was wrong on that one as well. But it doesn't matter anymore because Kyle's gone.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we lose Kyle tonight. We spoiled it already, but yeah, so we're going to lose Kyle here. In a rare instance where, like, it was next to Month Survivor was right. So,
like I said, it just vibes, purely based off of vibes. It just seemed like it was Kyle's time to go and the way that they were framing it.
Once or twice a season, the next time on Survivor tells the truth. I'm perfectly okay with that, and I'll take my 90% success rate.
Now you can know that the rest of the season it's going to be a lie because you got the one out of the way.
We're probably lying from here on out, and cool. I'm good with it. I don't need to be right all the time, just 90% of the time. It's fine with me. The other 10% can be just a little fun surprise. Genevieve, Sam, and Kyle talk, and they're kind of like the other side of the spectrum. Like, I think the three of us are the next three to go. So maybe let's try and protect one another, because otherwise we'll just get picked off. Okay, makes sense. And we get a lot of talk. Not everybody, but almost everybody on the tribe. We get like a deep thought process interview for all of them, pretty much. And it's really nice just to see everyone's perspectives and how their games have changed from the beginning to now. Really great segment, I thought.
Yeah, this is my favorite part of the episode, was just this string of strategic, like, internal monologues almost. I think we get Genevieve, Sam, Kyle, Rachel. Yep. Like, we get Andy.
Yep. Caroline.
Andy says the same thing he's said each of the last like 4 episodes, but whatever. But it was really cool to hear where they think they are in the game and who they think they can beat, and also what they have to do to even get to. Not just through this episode, but tomorrow and into the end of the game.
And I think we get teenies later. I think the only person we don't get is Sue's, and because hers is just, I want to get rid of Kyle.
Yeah.
That is all. That's all, copy, paste.
Yeah, and this is where we really get cemented into, there's 3. There's 3 people who are the big threats, and we already knew of Genevieve and Kyle as being the threats, but we get a little bit more verbal confirmation that Sam is out there being considered a threat. I don't know if I completely agree with that. I think
he just looks so much like a big threat and acts like a big threat. Has he done a whole lot? Not really. I think he's my favorite person left still. Who he reminds me of is Pete Yurkowski from Philippines. He was Abby Marie and Artist's ally, but he's like a nicer version of Pete, because like nobody dislikes him.
Yeah,
he just looks and acts kind of like Pete, but nice. A boat's gonna show up. Someone's gonna get to go on a journey. If they can't agree, all those people get to draw a rock. Genevieve and Sam both want to go. Obviously,
probably the right move for them.
Kyle, why aren't you drawing a rock? Kyle should obviously be going with.
Yeah.
And then Rachel's like, I don't want those two to get it. I'm going to try and get it myself.
Yeah, which completely get the thought process and agree with the thought process. But Rachel is going to, and with the results of this episode, Rachel is going to be in a really interesting position.
Yep, dangerous.
Because we already talked about there's 3 threats that people are actively talking about. But there's 5 other people and only 3 spots at the end. Rachel is gearing herself up and putting herself into a position to be the 4th person after those group of 3 are out of the game. And she's got to be really careful about it, and this does not help.
But she's got an idol. It might be enough. It might be enough.
It might be enough. And, as we saw today, she has the ability at least to win challenges.
Yeah. Rachel is someone who I think could flip a coin between her getting 5th place and winning.
Basically.
Yep. That's what I think we're going to get for Rachel. But Rachel wins the rock draw, so she's going to go on the journey. And this is awesome. This is by far my favorite journey we've ever done. This is so great. Yeah. This is Pirates of the Caribbean meets Saw. Whoever knew we were going to get that combination, but I'm here for it.
I loved it so much just because it just kept getting like, oh, you could make this entire thing so much simpler, and they don't.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
I love it. Let's
great design.
So they get out to a barge in the middle of the ocean, that's already unique enough, and it's a puzzle, basically moving balls around. It'll get all the right colors in the right spots. She has X amount of time to solve this puzzle, and she wins an unknown advantage at this point. But the start timer is not an hourglass or anything simple like that. She has to drop an anchor into the water, which is attached to ropes, other anchors, and more ropes, and which will drop more anchors. And eventually, it will pull the entire puzzle stand into the depths of the ocean down to Davy Jones's locker. If she doesn't solve it fast enough, taking the advantage with it. And I'm just like, did Pirate Jigsaw come up with this? This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
I love this so much just because it's so over the top. The only thing to make it, better would be just to add on to the end. And the rope is tied to your ankle, and you'll go to the bottom of the ocean with the board too.
Yeah, you're going to walk the plank with this puzzle if you don't solve it in time.
The rope that's attached to the weight that's attached to the other rope and everything on and on and on is also attached to the structure that holds the ball and the advantage, whatever the advantage is, we don't know. And it's attached to that as well, so if you don't finish in time, off the edge it goes. and it's just gone to the bottom of the ocean.
Yep. And it's so good. This it felt like a throwback to Survivor Pearl Islands. Like if we filmed Pearl Islands in this era of Survivor, this is the kind of thing we'd get. Arg.
And it just raises the stakes, even though it's the exact same game. As Rachel said, it's a pretty simple puzzle. It's a pretty simple game. It's just how quickly can you do it? And instead of just being an hourglass and you looking up every once in a while to see how many grains of sand are left before your time's up, she's hearing it behind her into the side of her, just bloosh, bloosh,
rope.
Bloosh.
Oh, another anchor. This is like the greatest idea Survivor's had in a long time. I don't know what the last great idea they had was, but this is an elite
Fire
idea.
tokens.
Medallion of Power.
Oh yeah, Medallion of Power.
Of course, the greatest advantage of all time. But this is so great. I love this. And Rachel does it with like a second to spare. Probably a trick of the editing. I don't care.
I don't know. It seemed like it because the way that they're tracking it seemed pretty accurate. And they don't really have a lot of room to hide on this. Ryan says barge, and Rachel's going to tell people barge later. Barge to me makes it seem like this big giant structure.
Small
it's
barge.
Not. It's like it is a platform.
It's a platform,
basically.
Incredible. She gets the advantage. And then after it's done, the thing goes flying into the water. So good. You got to give the dive team something to do.
Yeah, right.
They're usually just sitting there waiting to save somebody. Now they can go get this thing.
Congrats.
Fantastic. Well done, Survivor. This is amazing. And she's going to get a blocker vote good till through the final 6. So.
Yep. And actually, I will jump in here because we did get a question. It's a good time since we're on the topic of it. But from Keith on Blue Sky.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Blue Sky. Keith asks, what are your thoughts on the number of advantages?
I feel like there's been seasons more recently where there have been more advantages. Like 44, I think, had a lot. I don't think it's been too excessive this season. I think it's been fine.
I would actually go ahead and say it's been the right amount because, I'm not going to go purist on it and say, we should only have one immunity idol or something in the game. One mystery immunity idol.
Yeah.
I'm okay with there being the random extra vote in there, the random lost vote every once in a while. It doesn't have to be excessive every single episode. There's something going on with the vote. So I'm okay with the level that we're at right now. We haven't really had anything too gimmicky recently. And for the most part, the players are casting a lot of that aside and just neutralizing it themselves or burning it immediately.
As is the smart thing to do.
Other than the idols.
Yeah.
So I'm perfectly fine with the level of advantages right now.
And they haven't been overpowered either. So that's more my concern is like I just don't want the overpowered stuff. But like a fun advantage here and there can be fun. And I'm okay with this.
And I don't think a block vote is overpowered at all. It's not a steal a vote. And it's not, a safety without power or something like that. You're blocking someone's ability to vote and you're moving on.
And personally, I like safety without power. That's one I like. The only ones I really don't like are been the knowledge's power, the super idol. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the force a vote, like force somebody to vote.
Oh yeah,
like
control.
Hate control a vote. Yeah, more options is good, unless just like steamroll-y, advantage-y stuff. Rachel's gonna get back to camp. She tells everyone she lost her vote, but then she's gonna tell her alliance of 5, Andy, Teeny, Sue, and Caroline that no, she didn't lose her vote and she got a block vote. And this makes Sue really trust her.
Yeah.
And she even tells Rachel, like, I believe everything you say now. And Rachel's like, oh, I can use that to my advantage.
Okay. Thanks, Sue.
Perfect.
You are way too trusting. I do like the way that Rachel positioned herself here. And, going forward, it's the one thing, working against my theory of her being this big threat is she almost is the third person in 2 separate groups within this 5. She has Caroline and Sue that she's the third person that she attached to there. And then she has Teeny and Andy and is the third person over there. So as far as, being a potential next one out after all the big threats are gone, at least she has that to lean on. And maybe it could be, a 3 versus 2 and she just has to pick her side of who she wants to go to the end with.
Yeah. And now that, it's a final 3 instead of a final 2 because that's similar to how Kathy was in Marquesas. He had Pascal and Ali on one side, Sean and Giuseppe on the other one. And that worked great until it was a final 3 and someone got voted out because it was a final 2. Didn't go as well for Kathy, but it's different here. So yeah, this could work for her. Hope so. I'd be cool with a Rachel win.
I would absolutely be okay with a Rachel win.
Genevieve's going to pitch to Rachel, if Kyle wins immunity, take out Sue or Andy next because they're goats taking up other people's spots in the finals. And Rachel's like, yeah, sure. secretly like, I want Genevieve out next. She's got to go.
I mean, that reasoning right there is why she needs to go. Like that, those are the types of things that good players think of, and it's the right move. It's for Genevieve and the big threats. This is the right move. We've said it on this podcast before that that's one of the levers that you can pull to try to stay in the game when you're on the top later in the game in the big threat that everyone wants to take out. The goat slaughter, the making sure people don't take up spots.
Yep.
I think with a cast where people are so knowledgeable and, just strategically sound, I don't know how well something like that works, because it's pretty easy to identify like, oh, okay, yeah, you are just saying that because you are the biggest star in the game and you want to stick around.
Like, respect, but no.
I'm going to lose if it's us two at the end.
Yeah. Rachel's immediately going to rat her out to Andy, and Andy's like, oh, cool, let's get rid of Genevieve next. It's not going to happen, but like, yeah, that makes sense.
And Andy immediately goes into thinking that everything's his plan to get Genevieve out.
Josh is a hater.
I am.
Just a straight up hater.
Yeah, it's formed over the last few weeks, but I'm an Andy hater just because I see his potential win coming, and I already know that if he does end up winning, I'm going to strongly disagree with it. Just because of everything that we are seeing so far, the edit is trying to camouflage it and show like how he thinks, and like, oh, he's been behind the scenes this entire time and he has all these connections, and it's been a big show that's on right now. It's Agatha all along. It's Andy all along. No, it was not Andy all along. It was everyone in Andy's ear all along, and then Andy's just the puppet.
A, Photoshop that's amazing. B, also, you're going to be annoyed because I'm going to be insufferable if Andy wins.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you imagine that like finale podcast after the Andy win, and I'm just be like, I think she got this big shitting grin on my face, and you're just going to be like, so mad. It's going to be glorious. Then you're going to meet Taco Bell, and I can't wait.
And the way that all these players are playing and just going, knocking out the threats one by one, which, again, is perfectly fine to do and is good for some of these people, I can absolutely see it happening. I don't need to go into it further. I said enough about it last week.
It's possible. Immunity challenge, Rachel is going to win. So now Kyle is the obvious vote. Everyone kind of wants to get Kyle out. Genevieve and Sam obviously want to do something different. And then Rachel and Andy both want Genevieve out. But Sue, Teeny, and Caroline are all really pushing for Kyle.
Yeah, and Andy is trying to make a point here. A math base point, a probability base point. And, this is the one area where I am sad that Derek is not here. It's the only reason why.
The only reason we're sad Derek's not here.
Yep. Is he tries to math his way into getting people to vote out Genevieve. I don't know if he's right with his calculations. He comes to like 6.2% as far as Kyle's chances of winning out to the end of the game, and then, basically just being handed the $1 million. Basically, he's saying that over the last few challenges, I think he used the last 4 challenges, he's won half of them. And because of that, if so facto, he's going to, just multiply that out across the next 4 immunity challenges or whatever, however many it is. And he comes to that number. And I'm guessing that Derek would agree with this, but the one big flaw in Andy's logic here is the sample size that he's working with. He's making a lot of assumptions based off of a very small sample size and making those assumptions going forward. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is that I can absolutely see like people using logic like this in the future. So any listeners out there, don't assume that the results of past events is going to have the same results going forward.
Right. And I think Andy... Like, yeah, okay, I see what he's trying to do, but I think the emotional route is always better than the logical route in Survivor. That's just the game it is. It's an emotional game. If you appeal to people's emotions to get what you want, you're going to better. Appealing to logic only works if you're playing with other logical players. And even normal people who are normally pretty logical, they've been starving for 3 weeks at this point. They might not be working on logic right now, or at least not at the same amount. So emotional reasoning is usually more effective, I think. Pulling out math and doing numbers, rarely effective. It just isn't.
Rachel was on his side, maybe not necessarily with the math perspective, but just wanting to get out Genevieve. And you could even see on her face, she was turned away from the camera, but you could see that she was kind of laughing while he was walking through this logic of, well, if you do this and multiply it by this and this and this, like you get 6.2%, and it's just so unlikely that he's able to do this. It's like, dude, no, just slow down, and we'll just look at these two people at face value. Who do you think is either the bigger threat to win the game or the bigger threat to win more challenges for the remainder of the game. That answers Kyle.
Yep. But we're going to go to Tribal Council. It's going to end up being 6 votes for Kyle, 1 vote for Genevieve, 1 vote for Teeny. Kyle voted for Teeny for some reason. I have no idea why. And Andy voted for Genevieve. I'm going to assume, just in case of an idol, just threw a vote on Genevieve just in case. Everybody else votes Kyle. Even Sam and Genevieve jump on board. Goodbye, Kyle. I think this is the wrong move. I think Genevieve is a much bigger threat. I think Genevieve should have gone home.
Throughout this episode, my opinion on Kyle and his likelihood to win the game definitely changed.
Sure.
I think that this was the right move, strictly, and it is because of the challenge aspect. And I do understand the argument that he might be a one-dimensional player, even though I don't think that's an accurate statement. But the fact that he is the biggest threat to win challenges throughout the end of the game, I think is enough reason to get him out, just because even if he doesn't, even let's assume that you can vote him out at a future date because he loses a challenge, the likelihood of him winning other challenges along the way to screw up who might be going home that night, it could be your closest ally because he just wins a random challenge. Genevieve seems like she's capable enough to win a challenge, but maybe not just an overwhelming threat to do something like that. Those two are honestly 1A and 1B here. So those two are the only options. If they would have gotten Genevieve out, I would have understood the decision making.
That's what I'm at. I would have gone for Genevieve, but I think Kyle is fine, especially because I took him out of my can't win because that's where I had him last time. And I moved him up a few spots, or I would have if he had survived.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
So I don't think anyone loses the game here. I think that stays exactly the same at this point. The two people who I have there coming up shortly are there whether or not Kyle or Genevieve goes home here. So not optimal, but still a fine move for me. Mm-hmm. And you're saying it was the optimal move.
Yep.
Okay. What did Twitter say? We still have Twitter, right?
Yep. Yeah, I asked both Twitter and Threads in a poll if the right person got voted out tonight. 60% of Twitter said no. Guess they just want Kyle to stick around. Or maybe they agree with you that it should have been Genevieve.
Yep. Either one. I'm going to guess the first one, though, knowing Twitter.
And then according to Threads, 100% of people thought it was the wrong move.
One person voted?
No, there were 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, look at Threads. 8 whole votes.
8 whole votes on Threads, and
it was still 100%. Yeah, they all agreed.
They all thought it was the wrong move?
Yep. Oh. So Threads and Twitter, they're on the same page.
Wow. They all agree with
me, I guess.
So get right, Josh.
I guess I'm wrong.
All right. Should we get the best worst player of the episode?
Sure.
I'll kick us off with our best player. I think it's Rachel. She may have brought her threat level up a bit for sure, but she was so effective in the episode. She made this alliance with Andy and Teeny, and then brought in Sue and Rachel. She went on the journey. She got the block of vote. She won immunity, and voting on Kyle was fine for her. So Rachel's my best player of the episode.
This was such a good episode for Rachel. And that's why I didn't give it to her, just because of the threat level. Sure. It is a giant red flag to me that she's going to get 5th place. I gave it to Caroline just because she was able to patch things up with Sue. She was able to get into the group of 5, and she was able to have the vote go her way. She seemed to be the one who was the biggest person working against Andy in terms of, is it Kyle or is it Genevieve, other than Sue? People who actually have sway in a vote.
Yes.
It seemed like Caroline was the one who was, pushing back the most against Andy. So that's why I gave it to Caroline instead of Rachel. I overall still net positive for Rachel. Honorable mention, definitely. You have to be able to give her an honorable mention for everything that went on. I'm worried. I'm worried about what's going to happen.
Okay. Who do you got for worst player?
This is a hard one.
Yep.
I actually have 2 perspectives here that I'd like to share. One is almost a little bit of a default for Genevieve, just because she's next.
Yeah.
It most likely, as far as, even if she doesn't go next episode, she is now the undisputed biggest threat in the game. So that this is not good for her game to have Kyle go home. The other person I have is Sam. And my thought process behind Sam is that he is putting himself into a position that I don't think he needs to be in.
Sure.
He's saying that he's a threat and that he's at the bottom, which, sure, if you can make it to the end, great, because then you could be like, oh, against all odds, I was considered this big threat and people were talking about me and I'm still here, yada, yada. And he's in kind of just like a survival mode. I feel like it's very self-fulfilling in a way that it doesn't need to be. He could just as easily go and try to pair himself with Rachel and with Andy and just with really anyone else and build different bonds instead of just assuming that you're a threat. Instead, he's setting himself to go in a couple of episodes. If Genevieve wins the next immunity challenge, it could very likely be Sam that goes next. And I don't think that needs to be the case. To me, like I said before, it's two really big threats right now, Genevieve and Kyle. And then there's a bigger group, I think, below them as far as threat level to me goes. And I feel like he's trying to talk himself up into the threat category when I think that's going to hurt himself in the end.
So who is your final answer?
I landed on Genevieve, but, that's just my thought process for Sam.
I did not give out a worst player because I thought everyone had a net positive. Genevieve and Sam survived. They tried to switch things up, failed when that didn't work, and there's no reason for it to work. They did throw their votes on Kyle, and that's what you got to do at this point. Just, you can't keep it together. Cut a threat. Hopefully something changes and you can just survive the day. Good enough for me. I would have given it to Kyle because I just didn't see him fighting or trying to scheme and plot much. Like he was laying in the hammock talking to Andy once. I actually saw Genevieve and Sam doing stuff. And then I don't understand the Kyle vote for Teeny at all. Just vote for Genevieve. Vote for Sam. Try and turn on one of the others. If you can't save the Big Threat Alliance, turn on them. That's what you got to do. But I can't give it to Kyle because he got voted out. So he's not eligible. So he's the only person would have considered. So I'm not going to give out a worst player.
As is your right. I disagree, but
that's fine.
It is your right.
All right. Who is going next? I'll start us off. I think we're just going to keep going down the line. Genevieve's next. Next time on Survivor, pitched a women's alliance that Genevieve wasn't in. And then Andy's name got brought up. So therefore, it's not Andy. Who's going to be? Genevieve.
Yeah, we got a little teaser of Sam and Genevieve trying to utilize Andy in order to get some plan in motion? Question mark. I do not see any way that would end up working out, nor should it. I think it's just going to be a fairly straightforward default correct move to vote out Genevieve next, and we're just going to keep going in line, I think, and just biggest threat, and then we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how the game goes after that.
Yeah, who knows? Let's get into who can't win the game, and which is our jank downs and rank downs. No dank downs tonight.
Boo.
Get wrecked, Eric. Josh, what's your jank down looking like?
Yeah, and a quick recap from last week, just with the listener link down average that we put together. Thank you to everyone who submitted. They had Kyle, number 1. So they're going to have a new top dog this next week. They did have Rachel in their second spot, so we'll see if that's consistent. And then down at the bottom, they actually had Teeny and Sue at the very bottom. The only thing between all 4, you, me, Derek, and the listeners, the only thing that we all agreed on is that Sue is in last as least likely. Yeah. So thank you again, everyone, for submitting those, and you can send us a DM at any time with those rankings or reply on Spotify or comment on Spotify in the episode. So thank you again. For this week, after tonight's episode, I had 0 changes.
Okay.
So from the top, mine was and is Genevieve, then Rachel, then Teeny, then Caroline, then Sam, then Andy, and then Sue. So Andy is back into the basement of can't win the game. And only person he can beat right now is Sue. I thought about bringing Sam up in my rankings just because people are talking about him as a threat, but I have a feeling that if, Final Tribal was held today, I think a lot of his game would be invalidated just by the fact that he is in survival mode. Yeah. And he's not really doing much right now. I think that he has the ability to be a threat in the game, but it just doesn't seem like he's doing much.
Sure. Mine is pretty close. I swapped 2 people, which I had done the week before. I swapped them back. So mine is Rachel and Genevieve, and then Sam and Teeny, where they were swapped, followed by Andy, and then my 2 can't win are Caroline and Sue. I just don't see it for either of them. So that's where I'm at. Caroline, Sue, bottom 2.
Yeah, all right. Again, disagree. I think you guys are undervaluing Caroline's game, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Last thing we got to do, unfortunately, is the survivor pool. So all 3 of us had Andy. Andy survives. Great, cool. We're all through. Next person up, who do we pick? Derek has Genevieve. That's his automatic pick. You and I have no one. Therefore, Derek wins the pool.
Game over, man.
Game over. Are any of the listeners still going?
We have one listener remaining.
Yep.
Again, thank you to everyone who has participated throughout the season. We have one listener who is still chugging along. I do not have the list in front of me, so I do not know who he all has left remaining. He also picked Andy this week for his pool pick.
And he had somebody else left, so he's still alive.
Yep, he's definitely still alive
Yep.
with someone else remaining that he can pick from. So, if Derek wants to keep going, well, actually, no, Derek can't keep going because he only has Genevieve left.
So Derek's pick going into the next episode is Genevieve. We'll check with our other listener, Jordan, see where he's at, and they'll still keep playing. But between the three of us, Derek wins.
Congrats, I guess.
But Derek's next pick is automatically Genevieve. And then we don't have everything in front of us because we're not podcasting our usual spots and with our usual stuff. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, that's the episode. On that note, good one. Josh?
Yeah, things go faster when you don't have Derek taking up all the airtime here.
Josh, why don't you do the social media then?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, which is Castaway Pod. Some fun interactions back and forth with people throughout the week too. If you have any, questions about the episode, feel free to send them in. We did have one today that we ended up answering already on the podcast. But even if you do have anything, after the fact that you're wondering about, or even after listening to the episode, we do interact with people on all those. I see them come through, whether it's Ryan responding to people, Derek responding, me, and we'll try to sign our names on there, so especially when we do not hold the same viewpoint.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm responding, and whenever I check Twitter and I see notifications on the account, Josh is the one who checks it the most. But if I do check it, I'll respond, but I'll always sign my name because I know there's disagreement frequently amongst the three of us. But you can trust the quality of the tweet when I sign it.
Yes, of course. And at least, if you're proven wrong in the future, you know who it came from. So go ahead and interact with us. It's super fun to talk back and forth with people there. Like I said, there's no video this week, but for the future, you can also follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube for our video content and just to follow along there as well.
Don't forget Threads.
And Threads, we had
favorite.
8 people voting on the poll today at Threads.
8 more than I expected.
You could make it 9.
Oh my gosh.
And then, like Derek usually says each week, go ahead and leave your comments on Spotify with your listener link down or in any of our DMs again, or, same thing as usual. You can just talk there. We can reply as well on Spotify.
Perfect. Anything else, Josh?
I don't think so.
All right. Cool. Well, I'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I know. So you're listening to this. It's Black Friday. Got released a day later because of Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a safe, happy Thanksgiving and got to eat more than the Survivor contestants did. On that note, this has been the Castaway Consultants. Got nothing else for you.
Good night.